Hi there. It's been a while since I've done a YouTube. I'll let you know that. Basically my previous YouTubes I've sort of gotten rid of, and now I'm down to, I want to actually do YouTubes to do tutorials on how to make things, and how to essentially learn how to do things with art, learn how to do things with 3D stuff, learn how to create things in 3D. Basically I don't know if you can tell, but I have a Vulcan cannon as a earring. It just, well, you know, who doesn't want to have a Vulcan cannon hanging off their fucking ear? I mean, sometimes you wish you could just shoot somebody. Got my little cog gear that I built. This is another, these are all ideas that I'm building at the moment. They are not really, some of them are not ready. The gear you can actually buy off my website. My website I will actually put at the bottom of here at some time whenever I figure out how to put that on. My name tag, I like to make things in 3D. I like to bring them to life and make them into actual objects in reality using Shapeways. And I wanted to show people how you can do that, because a lot of my friends ask, how do you do this? How do you do that? And it's really not that hard. Part of the reason I'd like to show you how to do this, one, I will probably be learning in the process both how to do, video clips is something that I'm sort of learning. I'm a bit of a scrounger. I found this camera I'm using right now, I think it belonged to my sis. Anyway, I found it in a bunch of stuff, and I'm now using it. It's HD, so I'm like, hey, that's cool. I actually do wear glasses, however, my glasses reflect my screen, so I took those off. My accent will probably fluctuate, you'll understand that later on, but right now it's not important. So anyway, I have a script on the side of here, so you're going to see me looking back and forth. That's going to look kind of ridiculous, but I don't really care how I look at the moment. Basically, here's my general thought. I have a question, and it is, do you have a creative mind, and would you like to create things, however you're not sure how to really do this at all? I was very much like this. I like to create things, and until recently I didn't know how to really do that. And then I've been now teaching myself how to do this. I don't have a formal education in this. I'd like to go to school, however, school is expensive as hell. A lot of you already know that. And basically I feel if you have the aptitude to want to do something, education should be free, and I want to basically show any way I can, or give away any secret I can, on how to make that possible, even if you don't have money for it. Mostly, a lot of the things I do are on the cheap. I mean, after all I just said, the camera I found in a bunch of junk, and now I'm using it. This is a, basically a free asset until my sis wants it back. But some things you have to pay for, and this sucks. Other things you don't have to pay for, and that rules. So I'm going to tell you about different programs you can use on how to do things without spending a lot of money. My purpose is essentially, one, I don't have much money, but I like to build things. The other thing, I'd like to create them, and I don't want to spend too much on it. If I had money to spend on quality gear and quality stuff to build things, or just tell somebody to do it, I probably would, although I probably wouldn't just tell somebody to do it, because I just enjoy making things, because it's your thing. Basically this, nobody has this yet, or at all, technically. It's actually made specifically for my ear, so I'm probably going to improve on it. I'd like it to make it go up here. That'll probably be another video. The Vulcan cannon is actually a mistake. It was originally meant to go up the other direction on the side of my ear. It does not work the way I wanted it. I'm happy with it. even though it is a little funky, and we'll probably make a video on how to do that too, and how to fix things. However, for our first video, I thought it would be fun to... I'm going to make something that's going to be a really simple project, to be honest, so that you know, we can have something to start off with, but I'm going to follow it through all the way to the end, from basically concept to getting it modeled. Programs I'm going to be using is Blender. Blender is a free open source program which is awesome. It does all sorts of things. I cannot, you know, stress that enough. It will do, you can make actual 3D, you know, modeling with it, where you can print things with Shapeways. Shapeways is an awesome, cool company where you can build your own things with it. They are pretty cheap, and also I'll show you some ways on how to make objects cheaper, because sometimes, well, I can't afford what I build, which kind of sucks sometimes. The couple things you might need for if you want to build actual 3D objects. Now, a caliper is recommended. This is a very cheap model caliper. I got it, most everything I got over at Home Depot, Lowe's, any, you know, I mean, you could probably get one at Walmart, any place that just has a general, you know, a general hardware area. Generally don't shop at Walmart for other reasons, but we'll just skip over some of that. However, there is one problem with this. This is, it's a nice one. I mean, if you ever used a caliper, I mean, basically you put it on the object, close it down, you can get the measurements off of it. It works the same way if you wanted to do the distance between your fingers, or, well, not your fingers, but I mean anything you wanted to use. It's meant for getting measurements off of a secondary object. However, when I built the project we're going to do today, the project I'm going to fix is a stick shift in my car. The stick shift in my car, I don't know exactly what all I'm allowed to say, but basically we'll just call it the car. The stick part of it is a simple cylinder. It has no threads on it. I'm not sure how to do threads yet, but I don't have anything to do threads on to practice with, so it doesn't matter. But it's a simple cylinder. However, the company cut a small notch out of the cylinder, making it so that you can't just put an aftermarket part on. You can, however, it doesn't sit right. I've tried it with about 4 or 5 different stick shifts, and it never really works very well for me. The reason I've done this is the part that was originally on it, I was allergic to the material on it because I have a latex allergy, and it was giving me a bloody rash on my hand. So, ergo, I'm smart. I've got what it takes. I can build a piece that will go in there. I've already done this once. However, the first time I used it, I used this caliper here. This caliper is nice. However, it's only as good as the measurements you put down on paper. If you put the measurements down wrong, well, you know, you might be a little bit off. There we go. I have gotten this thing. This is a digital caliper. It is awesome. This I've been using for some of my new projects, and it has been awesome. I got this at Home Depot. It was like $35. It's not breaking the bank, however, you know, a little more expensive. Some people don't have $35, you know. For some people, $35 is nothing. For other people, that is a lot. So, anyway, I'm going to be using this new tool to help with building a new stick shift. So, here we go. Okay, hi. So, we are in my car. It's a bit messy. Fortunately, you really can't see that from this angle. Anyway, what I'm going to do is I want to make This is the stick shift in my car at the moment. It is one I made completely out of using Blender and used Shapeways to print it off. However, when I printed it, I used this is one of my little flaws. I like to use cheap stuff. I like to try to do things as cheap as possible, but sometimes cheap just doesn't work. I used a rather cheap caliper that was like $10. I'll show you that caliper later. It did not do as good as it was. Part of it is that the caliper I used will only put down as well as the measurements that you put on your paper. I use metric for everything, just about, just to let you know. If you don't like metric, well, tough. Metric's about the easiest you can use for anything, I think. But anyway, so I have a new caliper. It is a lot better. It's a digital set. I got these, I believe, at Home Depot. They were about $36, and they are very, very nice for making very accurate measurements, which is what we're going to do. What I plan to do, and I will show you how to do both of these, I'm going to either make a part to fix this to sit right, because right now it fits. It is just a little bit shimmy. I don't like the shimminess. I am going to either make a part to make this steady, and it will adapt to this piece, or we are just going to build an entirely new stick shift for the car. Now, what kind of made this, it's a little hard to see, basically, the car manufacturer made a cylinder that has a flat edge piece right here. That flat edge piece makes it very hard for you to buy an aftermarket part on your car and get it to work correctly. Now, when I made this piece here, I actually did make a cutout in it, just like this piece here, but when it came out, either because of my poor measurements, or maybe just when it was printed by the printing press or the machine from Shapeways, it may have been a little bit off. Either way, this is not much of a big deal. I'll show you why and a little later. So I'm going to take my caliper here. Caliper is one of my favorite tools to use ever. What you do, I'm going to take it on this edge. I'm looking around because I'm supposed to wait for the cable guy. My roommates are getting cable. So what you do, you take this caliper, and we're going to stick it on the edge of the part of, this has some tape on it, I'll let you know. The stick shift, it's a cylinder, essentially the shape, and then it has a little flat piece cut out. I have tape on it to hold my stick shift that I made in place. The idea is that later I won't need this tape. I can cut it off. Right now I'm just leaving it there because we do have a clean spot right here. When I put the calipers to the very top here, I'm going to pull it down, and this is all the way across the cylinder, not the flat piece yet. When you go all the way as close as possible as you can, tighten this little screw up here. That is going to lock the calipers in place. And we are at 12.12 millimeters. I'll have to remember that later, or it's on video. So next, we're going to zero this out. Now I'm going to take a measurement just from where the flat piece is. Okay, got that. That is at 10.44. So now we have the measurement that is to the flat part of, say, the first measurement is going to be the diameter of the cylinder. The second part will be the flat piece. And I'll show you how to make this all make sense later. Let's see. So 10.44. I'm going to remember that, just saying it so that I can remember it later. Then I'm going to zero this out one more time, and I want to see what is the distance for this flat piece. So what you do, take your caliper, when you turn this little knob, you see this little thing coming down. That little part is going to tell us depth. Okay. And then you once again turn your screw at the top. Now we have 28.02 for the depth. The depth isn't really going to matter too much. I'm going to probably make it a little bit of a smidge between where the depth is, because all I want it to do is I want it to sit correctly, and I don't want it to shim this way. I don't really care if it is up or down, because it's not going to hold in place indefinitely. It is not going to be a perfect version of, this of a stick shift. It's just going to do the job of being able to hold on to the thing. It's made so that I can drive it around, and it's not going to be, to some sort of like GM specs or, Ford or any model of car. But this is mainly what I'm trying to do is I want to make a stick shift for my car, and I want it to basically be my design. I want to make it look cool and kick ass, and it's going to be mine. So anyway, yeah, back to the drawing board. Okay, so I'm not sure what's wrong with the screen in the first half of this video. I just like the take, so I kept it. We're kind of figuring this stuff out as we go. So far, here is Blender. Let's see. Down. For those of you who can't see, I have a silly kitten that keeps trying to get into my lap. But, oh, and shit, there it is again. Sit. Stupid cat. Anyway. This is Blender. Blender, it's free, it's open source, it's awesome. It's actually about, I would say, as powerful, if not even more powerful than CAD, but everybody likes CAD in the industry, so what the hell. It'll do about some of the same things as CAD will. It will do some of the same things that Maya will do. It just depends on how you like to do things. So far it works really good, and of course, yes, it is free, which is the awesome part of it. So what I'm going to do, we're going to open up my original stick shift blend. This is what the stick shift in my car looks like. This one's a little bit different. These were actually different variations of the same stick shift idea that I had before. However, they were a lot more expensive to build, and in this case this one was actually transparent, which has the words Ramona written inside, which is the name I call my car. Anyway, actually, if you see in this transparent one, you can actually see the cylinder area that's cut out in the stick shift. So anyway, sorry I don't have screencast or like casting keys on here yet. I intend to probably find a program that'll do that. I'll try and explain things as I go along as best I can. Let's see here. So anyway, just to kind of show you a few little things. These are some other ideas, and this is what I'm going to probably do for the newer stick shift that I'm going to build. It's probably not going to be like that, maybe like this, but it will actually be probably a simple icosahedron, because icosahedrons are really cool. If you don't know what those are, that is like a 20-sided die, essentially the same thing that you would probably see in Dungeons and Dragons. For all of the nerds out there in Nerdland, nothing wrong with being a nerd. Nerds are awesome. So anyway, this, I believe, is, yes, this is the original duplication of the shaft. My first thing that I usually do with any kind of project like this is I duplicate the part that we're going to need. Just a second. Kind of losing my voice, but fortunately I have my coffee, and that is the important part. What I think I'm going to do, just because I have so much crap in this blend file from the other one, I'm going to do is open up a brand new one, and then we'll probably import some stuff from the other one later. I don't want to do that. New. There we go. So you can see from scratch where this is coming from. So let's see, I have, these are the measurements that we need for the new part. 12 by 12, or not 12 by 12, 12.12 millimeters is going to be our diameter. 10 by 44 is going to be to that little flat piece, and then 28.02 is going to be how far that flat piece is. So what we're going to do, delete that cube, which seems to be what everybody has to do. We're going to press number 1 on the keyboard. That will bring us to a head-on view, and then we're also going to press number 5. This brings us into an orthographic view. Orthographic just makes everything so you can see it top down, very much blueprint-like. We're going to add a cylinder. You'll notice the cylinder is, let me see, is that, yeah, that's good enough. Some people like more vertices on their cylinders. We don't really need it. Next thing, you're going to go over in this little corner here, and you see this little batch of tools right here. This, if you have your screen all the way over, this will slide back and forth, or you can just leave it out like that. You're going to go over to this one. It's the one that looks a bit like, it's got like a little ball, a cylinder, and a light. And then you're going to go down to and click on metric. This is going to be how you can do measurements in here. Next, you're going to press N, which will bring up a properties window on the side. You'll scroll up here. We got transform, we got scales. Let's see here. Dimension. Dimension is what we'll want. I'm going to choose, now this right here, this red line here, you'll see a red and a green line in Blender, and then a blue. The red is your X radius, or your X plane. Your Y is the green one, and then blue is your Z. Your up and down, basically. So, I'm going to go to X radius. I'm going to punch in the first coordinate. Now, the first is 12.12 millimeters. However, when you type that in, there it goes. Blender will automatically put it into centimeters. That is fine and dandy. Now, you're actually going to do Y as that as well, because, well, you'll see why. And then we'll take the last coordinates here, or the last measurements. I'm saying the wrong word, I'm sorry. Drop that in here. Oh, bloody hell, stop being a twat. Okay, so now we have this rather small cylinder. Alright, now, so we've got our cylinder. And by the way, in case if you ever get this problem where the screen moves around too much, you can actually press, it's the backslash key. It's on the right side, just above enter, and you will lock onto the object, and then no matter what you do, it is staying steady right in front of you, and that is a very good way to keep track of stuff. And then you can also, bonk out of that too, in case you want to add extra parts to the scene. But what that does is it just locks onto that object. If you have, I'm going to press Shift D, and we can make 2 of that object, and then when you go into backslash, it'll go onto that one object. However, if you want, you can go like this, press Shift and click on that object and press it, and now you are locked onto both of those objects. So say if you had like a whole bunch of things on the screen and you don't want to basically deal with certain ones, you can always do that, and it just shift and hold down on whatever object you want and then all of a sudden, shebang bang, you've got all the objects you want. So I'm going to delete this piece because we don't really need it right now. And this part is not going to be exactly the piece that we're going to use, to be honest. This is just a part that is going to be used to actually make the other parts that we're going to use. So the next thing is the flat piece. Flat piece was, let's see, 10.44 millimeters, and that would be the Y section. How do you get the flat piece out of this? Well, that's a little bit tricky, but not so much. I'm going to press, let me see, this is going to bring us to the top by pressing number 7. And we're going to add, let's see, I'm going to press A so that I deselect this. A will select or deselect the object, in case you don't know. Press, let's see, I'm going to drop a cube. Add cube. By the way, you can do any of this over here from this little neat graphic user interface panel that the newest versions of Blenders comes with. I use it occasionally. It's very pretty and stuff, but once you've been using Blender for so long, you just kind of get used to it. So this little flat box, what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull open this. No, wrong thingy. Alright, we're going to take 10.44 millimeter. Let me see here. Where did dimension, 3D cursor, view, all this extra stuff here. Okay, come on here. One thing you have to do always is you can either convert this into centimeters or you can do it into millimeters, but you always have to tell the box what you're doing with it, because Blender doesn't know what the hell you're trying to do. What I've kind of done, I took the square here and we put it over the top of the cylinder. Square we really don't need, and there's a couple different ways to do this operation we're going to do, but I like to do it about the most cleanest way we can. I'm going to press G, and we are going to move this square back. Let's see here. I'm going to add another square in a bit, because we're going to check our math. Let's see here. I'm going to add a color onto this just so that we can keep track of stuff. Make that kind of a blue. Make our circle, let's see, let's make that kind of a pink color for right now, because you do get, in this gray matte background, Blender does get a little bit blue. Alright, just had to take a brief moment to do some little math in my head to make sure I was doing this right. Essentially this right here is the distance that we took with the caliper on when we actually when we took measurements in the car. And you see right there that little bit of pink sticking out the back, that is what is left over from the cylinder. The two ways that we could do with this is you could either take the distance from there and divide it, and the leftover remaining will be right here. You can actually just add it up basically with another object and then use what's called a boolean to cut that out. Or in this case, which is actually a little bit different from the first way I did it, but this should be easier to model. And because when you use what's called a boolean in Blender, it will change the geometry of the object, so it's not so clean geometry. But right now, if we see here, let's see. I think I will show you both ways here. So, let's see here. Right now what I'm doing, I'm pressing the tab button. Tab button brings you into this really groovy looking thing. It's our edit mode. It lets us add and change vertices onto our model. What I'm going to do is press Control R, and nope, that's not what I'm pressing Control Z to back out of that. Control R, and then while you're in Control R, you can take this and let it move. As you see that object, that little piece of wire, when it starts to go into the blue right there, then we've gone too far. So what we're going to do is we're going to add it right there. Okay. I might do a couple different variations of this because this is not the best math, but it will probably work. And this is essentially what I would call eyeball math. And I will show you a couple different ways on how to do this in a very more precise way. Okay, so right there that looks pretty good. Now you'll see you have all of these little vertices all over the place. We're going to fix those in a second. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this object and this object, and we're going to duplicate them. I'm going to move them off to the side because we're going to play with those a little bit later, doing some different types of math, so I can show a little bit of different ways to do this. Now what I'm going to do, you're going to take, Blender actually has a left click or right click for how you click these. I think I'm pressing the right click, or actually left clicking. Yeah, who gives a crap? Anyway, hold Shift down and you can grab each and every one of these vertices. Pull them, you go all the way to the very last where we drew our line, and we're going to press Alt M, move to last, and it will take all of those vertices we just grabbed and take all of them over to there. Now it doesn't do the same on both ends, so what we're going to do, let's just go down here and go 1, 2, 3, 3, all the same things we did up at the top, and Alt M, at last. And all of a sudden they all went away. There's multiple different versions of how that works, but that way worked just dandy. Alright, what I'm going to try is press H. This will hide that box for the moment. And if my math is correct, this should be exactly the measurements that are over here, or about as close as possible as we could probably get for the moment. So what I'm going to do, press Alt H, that'll bring back the box. I'm going to just get rid of that box for now because we don't need it. I'm going to move this little fella over here. I'm actually going to name it so we can remember who is who. We'll call this cylinder crap math. Yes, I'm not very PC. I'm sorry. No, I'm not. Let's see here. I'm going to go into here and we're going to bring these back over. You can easily do this by essentially moving that right there. What I'm also going to do here, let's see here, this should work. Let me see. Alright, just stopped that for a GIF and came back because math isn't so much my strong suit. I just work around it, but I wanted to try something. I just took this number here and we did a little minus this number here because this one is the diameter, but it has a chunk missing out of it, so minus 10.44, leaving us with 1.68 millimeters. So what we're going to do is take the square, I'm going to press Control D, and that's going to duplicate that square. However, on the y-axis, what we're going to do is take 1.68 millimeters, and let's see, we're going to put that right in there. And guess what? That should bring us to the exact remainder, which is awesome. I know that probably doesn't mean jack to a lot of people out there, but you know, for somebody who really struggles with mathematics, I think it's cool because I actually like mathematics even though I suck at them. So I'm going to grab that, we're going to bring it back. It should be almost better. Exact. Is that exact or not? Alright, now I'm going to take that, get rid of that box. I'm going to show you the other method on how to do geometry to this. So, I'm going to take this, I'm going to call it cube math, whatever. Doesn't really matter what you call it because that cube ain't going to mean jack. But we're going to go to right here, we're going to select cylinder math, we'll call that one too so we know who's who. And we're going to go into this little wrench over here. The wrench is for modifiers. Press N, get rid of that so you can see better. And we're going to do called Boolean. Boolean, we're going to go and click difference. Difference will basically make it change the geometry by the difference of another object. In this case, we're going to go cube math, and then press apply, and what will happen, all of a sudden, the cube has cut into original cylinder. I'm going to go hide that chunk, and we're going to press Tab to look at the geometry, and wow, a lot of time Boolean kind of makes the geometry look a little funky. In this case, you can see it really did almost the same thing that I did. Let's see, so I'm going to press Alt-H. We don't need this cube anymore, we're going to just get rid of that thing. And here you have two pieces. One is made with crap math, and one is made with more authentic math. Let's see, drag them over the top. They look almost identical. Just for shits and giggles, I'm going to press blue button, make one blue and one pink. We can drag them over the top of each other. In fact, go over to here. This will change the location so they literally are going to be on top of each other. And you can see amount of health being a difference. I mean, we got, yeah, it's almost down to a T. Creepy. So anyway, gonna take that. Let's see. I think this came out so well. I think I'm gonna trust that more than crap math over here. So I'm just gonna get rid of crap math. Goodbye. So now we have this one that's about as well as we can. Next, the reason why we have this is to actually create a cylinder that we're going to use for Boolean on the new stick shift. So, and actually, what the other thing that this is going to be for, let's see. If I wanted to make a piece that is going to go into the old part that I originally built, it's going to have to fit precisely on it. So I am going to stop the video and I'm going to get that part and then we're going to measure it. Hello again. Not really using a power drill, I just can't resist playing with one. This is actually for another project that I'm working on for my roommate. Anyway, so what we're gonna do, I'm gonna check because the piece that we're going to build to fix this, the cheapest method that I can do for this problem is we can build a part to fit into this piece to hold it onto the linkage in the car easier. That's the cheapest method. The other method is we can make an entirely new one of these. The only reason why, a bird back there, the only reason why we would want to go and do... Shut up! The only Alright, after trying to hush up the bird a little bit. So, I have this part, and what I'm going to try and do is figure out how far off I am. This way we know how big we need to make our new part. In either case, why we would go with the second option of building a new stick shift goes with, can Shapeways make a part to fit this end of it? So in other words, if the amount of space between the new object that'll go in here is so thin that Shapeways wouldn't be able to print it because of the walls, and we will get into that later, then we actually will need either a new piece, and either way I'm going to do both. I'm going to try and do a fix-it part because I like the stick shift. It was very nice and okay. By the way, the reason why it has all these holes that you can see on there, those are called escape holes. What they will do is make it so that when it gets printed out, you're not using as much material to print. This means your cost goes down. When I originally made this and it was solid, it was about $180 to print. After I put in all these escape holes and made this entirely hollow, I got it down to $40. So they do make a big difference. And they kind of look kind of cool too, and I'll show you how to make those little escape holes too. They're actually pretty easily done. So anyway, how do we find our difference? Take our magic digital caliper here, turn it on, and what we're going to do is take this and put this part here inside, and we're going to move it out, and we're going to make sure that it's not hitting that flat half. So now we have just the diameter. Gonna try to hold it at about as 90 as I can get it. And lock. It's not really falling off there anymore. And let's see here. It is at 13.17 millimeters. Okay. So we have that distance now. The reason I changed clothes is roommate and I are going to a fight club later on, and yeah, just want to get ready to get my ass kicked. Anywho, so back to Blender. Okay, so I'm back again. One thing I noticed when watching my video, as I'm kind of making it as I go along, is I noticed one thing. This right here, the second bit of geometry, this is what Blender cut off at the Boolean. This is what I cut, so I was a little bit behind. And I'm going to show you a neat little simple trick on how to get rid of ship geometry. As I suffered from this a ton. Click on both of those pieces, and then hit X, and then let's see here, what would be the simplest way? You can hit Edge Loop, that did it, and that basically just gets rid of those extra vertices we do not need. There's another method that you can do as well. Click on that vertice and the other vertice. You can press X again, and then we can do dissolve vertices. Oh no, that didn't work. Bring that back. So that did not work at all the way I planned. We'll just go back to Edge Loop because that worked perfect, and now we basically got rid of those. One of the main things when you're doing this is, save it, is get rid of as much geometry and vertices as you can until you need them. It's easier to work on something when you don't have to deal with extra crap all the time. Next we're going to do, since we're essentially recreating that metal piece that's in the car so that it will fit onto the top of something. I'm going to do here, let's see. We got the remaining bit. Okay, so I just went and I used the caliper and I got the distance right here. I was going to try and do some like math and try to do essentially a different way of doing it, but yeah, that's why you got calipers for in the first place. Let's see here. do millimeters. So now this should be exactly the same distance as what we actually need for the part to fix the other part. So what I'm going to do, let's see here, save. It's one of the things is you should probably save a lot. And then next thing we're going to do, let's see, what are we going to call this? Let me see, cylinder math, let me see, fix it part. Yeah, I know my naming is kind of stupid, but it all works anyway. What we're going to do, so that is the chunk that is going to essentially work into here. And what we're going to do is go to here, a little wrench area, close that so you can see, and in fact I'm going to close this so you can see as well. I'm going to go and we're going to pull out the boolean again. Let me see here. This is called cylinder math, and this is called cylinder fix it math. So we're going to do, click difference, cylinder math, apply, and wazza! That is pretty. Now we have, this is essentially a part that I could print off at Shapeways, and it should fix my other part that I just built. So, let me see, I'm going to take this, I'm not going to delete it, I'm just going to set that one aside because I will need it later on. So this piece here, we don't really know yet if this part will completely fix the problem that we're having. We just, because we don't know if Shapeways can print it yet. I don't know if the walls, I believe the walls will be thin enough or thick enough, and depending on what material we choose will depend on how this will look. The second thing we need to do, we need the distance of how far this part needs to go into the other object. Okay, so there's one last measurement we're probably going to need, and that is the distance to the bottom of here, because right now the part that we're creating is about this big, is what we've already gotten. It covers up, let me see if I can, right now we have about halfway down, and this part that I made covers that one piece, the flat piece, and then I left it a little bit less so that it actually goes around and kind of wraps around that piece a bit. So we need the complete total depth to finish off what's left, or we can actually just do from, you know, the end of the little flat piece, but it won't matter too much. There we have total depth. It's still going to be the same measurement anyway. So, to do depth in something, turn our magic caliper on, and use this piece here. Put it down, bring it down till it ends. Tighten it. And then we are at 44.60. So let's see here. Just gonna write that down. .60 Z for Z. I have gotten into the habit of always putting down X, Y, and Z. What's kind of cool about it is eventually you get to doing this so often that one, you call everything X, Y, and Z. And then the other thing about doing X, Y, and Z all the time is you can actually just read papers and know what you're looking at by just X, Y, and Z on everything. It's kind of weird. To be honest, I do modeling so often that I actually see vertices on people's faces, which is kind of freaky. So anyway, we now have the Z for the end of that piece, and now back to Blender. Okay, so right now we have this part here. We just went and got the distance. The depth is 44.60, so that's how far the first object that we're trying to match goes to. So let's see here, 44.60, we are going to need, what I'm going to do is make a cylinder. Let's see. There's a couple different ways we could do this. We could actually just extend this part down, and then we could spin it about, so that you have a cylinder. Let's see, how do we want to do this, which would be the simplest way. And there's the simplest way, and then there's also the best way to get the best vertices out of it, because when this prints out, sometimes printing can get a little funky, and you don't want to have little screwy things in there. So let's see, we're going to try. First I'm going to step out of edit mode, disconnect from grabbing that, add a cylinder. Okay, now it always adds this huge cylinder here. I'm going to do something else here. We're going to go into, if you press F6, a lot of people don't even know about this, it will bring up a, so we have this property window here, and what we're going to do is we're going to just take the radius where it says 1 meter, and we're going to change that to 12.12 millimeters. So that will bring the radius to exactly the distance as the first cylinder. And we're going to take the depth, is going to be at 44.60 millimeters. So that should encompass the whole object. We're only going to need half of that. But we're going to still use that. So put in millimeters, so now we have the object out. And one other thing, the location on the properties is a little bit off, so what we're going to do is zero that out. And should bring us down to it. Let's see, it's not looking exactly right. Let's see. Oh, excuse me. It's actually about 1:38 in the morning at this moment when I'm taping this. Let's see. It is not what I want it to be. 12.12 millimeters, basically squared. Just gonna fix that over here. And so, right there you can see this is the part that is essentially about the same as what our chunk is going to be, and you see right here is where the flat half is. Doesn't really matter though. So I'm going to bring this all the way up to the very top. Easiest way I always do that is actually just to bring it in as close as possible here and just press G, and then you start bringing it up with your arrow key, and as soon as we get up close there, just close that till it disappears. If you want to get any closer, you can take a look. Usually it doesn't really matter too much in this case. And now I'm going to give this a color, just so we can know the difference. So I'm going to make that into a pink as well. And next thing we're going to do, going to duplicate this. We're going to pretty much do the exact same thing we did before. And going to make that duplicated object blue. And then we're going to take the other measurement of 13.17 and do that on the X and Y. That does not look right. That's because I didn't put in millimeter. There we go. Zero that out again. And then, let's see, this piece, I'll just move that off for the moment. Take this right here. Let's see. This is called cylinder 1. This is called cylinder. I'm not really going to even do any cool naming at the moment. I'm just going to go to Boolean, do the same operation we did just before. And cylinder 1. Nope, that didn't do it. That's because I didn't put difference. There we go, difference, apply, take that pink cylinder. We don't even need that anymore, I don't think. Nope, just get rid of that. Now, we have this cylinder and that cylinder. Math is not bad on that when it did the Boolean. I'm just going to take this, we're going to go to properties, and we're just going to move it right back. And then I'm going to change this to pink so we can tell the difference between who is who. And what I'm going to do, going to go into it should be letting me toggle into X-ray like that. Oh, I'll figure out why it's not letting me anyway. But we're going to grab those pieces there. X-ray is usually a lot easier for making objects into just basically grabbing a lot of vertices at one point. I mean, there's all sorts of ways you can do it, but that back down to there. What I'm doing is I'm zooming in with the little control wheel on my mouse so that I can bring that remainder up there, and I'm not really doing, you know, any neat math here. Go back to solid. I mean, if I wanted to, we could use the Boolean again, but I don't really need to. Actually, what we're going to do is something rather simpler. I'm going to take this object and that object I'm going to go and take toolbar out here just by pressing T, and we're going to join those pieces. And they basically still have the pink and the blue. Alright, well, I don't know what that was, but X-ray is now working again. When you just press Z, it'll go into X-ray, if you see that. X-ray, when you press tab, it'll all look like this. And why that is kind of important is that it just makes it easier for you to interact and go through walls, essentially. In this case, what I'm going to do is just mainly to line up all this stuff. So you're going to press C, which brings up this little, I forget what it's called, I'll remember in a little while, but if you bring up Z, or C, as in Celsius, brings up this little circle tool. If you move the little rotator wheel on your mouse, the scroll, it'll make it bigger or larger. When you click on an object, it will automatically select, vertices and whatever you pick down here, which is vertices, edges, faces. So you can basically select any of these, and you can unselect them by pressing down on the wheel. In this case, we're just going to select those two, press exit to get rid of that tool, and press Alt M to bring up the merge and center, and that will center both of those pieces and lock them together indefinitely. So I'm just going to press A to deselect that piece there. I'm going to bring up that tool again, selecting those, pressing Alt M, center, and this will bring those together. Another way to do this, which works the same way, is to press B and bring up the box tool, drag that little box around there, bring them together, press Alt M, center. And there's even another way, which is if you can do Control and right click, you basically bring up the lasso tool, which is the same thing, and you bring them together. Doing this doesn't really do exactly too much in the way of what we're doing. This conserving all of your vertices and such is actually really good for, say, if you were building a model for a video game and you want to save on how much memory the computer uses. Not so much when you're doing a model. Shapeways does have their own their own limits to how much they will allow you to print vertice-wise, but in this case we are so far, below that. I think their vertice limit is like 1,000,000 or something like that. So you can get pretty high poly type objects printed and it won't break the bank. What I'm going to do, I'm going to conjoin all of those little things together and fix that, but I'm not going to make you watch all that. I'm just going to pause, do that, and I'll come back. Okay, so while I fixed all of these pieces, all the vertices on here, so that they'll all fit together. So now, not only is this one piece, the vertices and everything is now kind of a little bit nicer topography for when it gets printed out. Sometimes when you print an object like this, or any object, if you have any vertices where they're hanging right close together, but they could be like just tiny bit off, the printer can sometimes screw it up, and then you end up having lots of problems when you try to load it later. One thing I'm going to do is I'm going to basically click on the blue, and we're going to press the minus button over in Materials, And this should, there we go. It is one object now, and basically we don't really need to have that in there. Let's see, the other thing we could do is that when you go into X-ray, if you actually move this, you can see there's sort of a crease right there. I'm not going to worry about that too much at the moment. Essentially what that is there's a wall that is in the middle of those creases, and if we hit face selection, you should be able to see that. In fact, what I'm going to do is press 5. This will put us in perspective view. Oh yeah, this is one of the things I wanted to go into also. When you have an object that is really small and you take your control wheel and scroll in, what will happen is that you can't see it. If you notice, it disappears when I go in and out. So all you have to do is press N, go to View, I believe, and then where it says start at 10 centimeters, that means the 10 centimeters it will start to do that little disappearing act crap. All you have to do is grab that and move it farther back. It sometimes gets a little bit tricky, but right now it's within 1 millimeter, and our object is about 1 millimeter anyway. So now what you can do is when you come down to this object, you can look at it and examine it, sort of like you're examining a building. And then you can even, by holding the rotator wheel down and moving your mouse, you can slide right into the object. And let's see here. What I'm looking for is, there it is, that's the wall. Inside this object there is a wall that is still there. The wall is related to inside that object, and this may or may not bother us at all later, but it could. It's just mainly that I've come across these so many times that they usually end up being trouble later. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to get rid of that wall. This means we'll have to fill in the wall, though, with something else. But, let's see. Get rid of faces. Okay. So what we should be able to do is, can we... Okay. Still can't look all the way down. Get rid of face. Get rid of that face. Now what happens when we did that is now there's this weird hole right here. That is not a hard fix. Let's see here. This is something adding a face. I'm going to click back into 5, which puts us in orthographic view. And that will actually just kind of makes it easier for us to see what we're doing. I'm pressing the F key. Basically, I'm just hitting 2 walls here with the edge selector and then pressing F, and it is filling in those walls. This is a little bit sometimes like sewing. There might be an easier way to do this in Blender. I'm not so sure how yet. Sure I'll find out someday. And I'm going to hit 5 again so that we go back into perspective view. And I just wanted to see... There we go. So that wall is there. It looks as though everything should be peachy. That's my technical term. We have that wall there. Wonder. Yeah, I think I'm gonna do that. The reason why I have some of this stuff showing sort of through is actually that we're zoomed in so far. I'm gonna go back in orthographic again. And what I'm actually just gonna do is press Control R. We're gonna add a little bit of crappy math, but it'll actually be adding a little bit of extra geometry here. And I'm going to do that on both sides. I think I just got a southern twinge there. I did say my accent changes every once in a while. So now we got that right there, and the reason for that, I'm going to press Z, and we're going to go to vertices. I'm going to press A so that I deselect all the vertices, and I'm just going to take that right there and move that vertice to there. And then, let's see, take that vertice there, and we're going to move it, and we're going at last. That'll move that vertice right over there, instead of doing at center like before. And we could actually, while we're here, select that face and delete it. Why did we do that? Because we just don't need extra stuff floating around, wasting memory, and basically confusing a printer later on that we're going to use. A lot of these things really, they may not ever bite you, but by doing some of them just from, you know, a little bit of cause and effect, it's not a bad thing to do. So let's see here. Okay, that looks good. Just saved it again. You should always save everything over and over again. Never hurts. And let's see. One of the things I'm going to do, this is essentially, this part is pretty much done. I'm going to load it at Shapeways and check it out and see if it'll work. I'll show you how to do that later. But what I'm also going to do, I'm going to go into X-ray, pull up the vertices, pull up the box tool, pull this, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag it a little bit farther down than it originally was needed. And actually, hang on, I'm going to go back with what I just did, duplicate this part, and going to pick blue so that we can tell the difference. I'm going to pick the pink one, and I just want to drag the vertices down a scotch, and then we're going to select the blue and we can see how far we're dragging them. That seems about a millimeter or so. If we want to actually check if that's a millimeter, I'm going to hit ruler. .697. I'm going to just drag, there we go. Dragging this down a little bit. So we're about, I'm going to drag this down to 1.5 millimeters. This is a little bit of eyeballing math. That's fine, it doesn't really, we don't really need to be exact math. But I'll show you why we're doing this in a jiff. So now we got that down. We can get rid of the ruler. And you can see right here is where the blue part stops. I'm going to press Control R, which will bring up an edge loop, and bring that edge loop right down to the bottom of where the blue part was. We're going to press left click. For some of you it might be right click. I have them reversed just because it feels better. I'm going to take this blue one that we just made and I'm going to move it aside. And that's just basically the original object, our object we just made minus this little correction or little add-on I'm going to do. And what I'm going to do, because I want this to have sort of a little lip so that when it goes on, it'll have something to make it tighten a bit onto the part, the stick shift. I'm going to press Shift and Alt. You get, when you put your, let's do that again, Shift, Alt, and then click down either right or your left click, whichever way you do it, kind of right at the edge here, and what it'll do is it'll make that go all the way around. Then we're going to press E and press S to scale out tiny bit. Let's see, I'm just going, yep. When we scale out, since it's scaling all of those in the same different directions, what it'll also do is it will fan this out, the object, this bottom part. What I'd kind of like to do is actually fan the other direction. So what I'm going to do is press S and Z, and this will scale all of those edges in. And that looks about right to me. So now you have kind of a sheath that is going to go on the inside of where the stick shift is. And this should, if the walls on this thing are great enough to fit in with a certain material that I'm thinking of using, which is a kind of soft, squishy material, this should work fine. Right here there's like a gap. I don't even care about that because I want this to be somewhat squishy so that it will kind of flex, and that way you can put the other part over the metal, and this should be all good as golden. And this will probably be the cheapest method of doing what we want to do. Press save. And now what I'm going to do, we're going to see what this, we're going to call this stickShiftFix adapter. Yeah, I probably didn't spell that right. I don't even care. Doesn't matter. So, save again, so it saves that name. We're going to open a new blend file. I'm going to press A to select everything and delete everything. And then we're going to append, which means we're going to bring in an object from the other one. We go into Object File, find Stick Shift Adapter. That is going to bring just the object we just made in here. And I'm going to go to Export as Collada, default one. I don't know how you say that, but another thing that doesn't even matter. So I'm going to call that stickShiftFix adapter, and I'm going to bring that. We're bringing all of this into the same blend file folder. And now what we're going to do is go and bring this into Shapeways and just see how it works. And then if we want to print this, and or if we want to make a brand new stick shift for the car, I'm going to do both, but I don't know if I'm going to print both. So, on to the next half. Okay, so we are on Shapeways website, and I'm already logged into my account. I'm going to check on this thing and see how it did. I'm gonna go into design if you're making them. I'm gonna go to upload, select file, and then it'll bring you, right now since I've already actually tested this, it brings me right to my Blender folder that we used for Shapeway for the stick shift, and we're gonna go to stickShiftFix adapter DAE, which is the same for the Collada file that we used for that. Just open and upload. Let's wait a few seconds here. You might, and that loaded pretty quick because there's not much for them to think about. Some of my models have taken literally like an hour to load. I am not kidding you. That could be my slow connection, but usually when the model is pretty simple, they pick it up pretty fast. So here we have what model we just built together. There we go. And right now it is showing how much it'll cost to be printed in all of these different materials. Shapeways has a ton of materials. We don't really care about any of them except for this one. This is called elastroplastic. It is a plastic which is kind of squishy. You can make all sorts of things. You can make shoes. I mean, I've seen all sorts of weird squishy things made out of it. It's really nice, but it is also kind of tough. Out of all of the other plastics that they have, it's a nice one because it doesn't really bend. The first pair of gear earrings that I made with this, and mainly because I wasn't so sure of the wheels on them, but actually I believe they'll hold up pretty good. These ones have held up pretty well. Anyway, now the one thing, it says it passed for this material, however it has thin walls. We can click on this and see how much the supported is 0.8 millimeters, meaning since I have lots of suspect walls, because I've already checked this out myself, here comes my model, and this is sort of their interpretation of how the walls would look or what is somewhat suspect in them. But you can see that the very bottom, that lip that I gave it, is the only part of it that is on their safe side, which is only about double the walls of there. So this is about a half wall thickness of what their normal supported is. I believe they can actually make this. I've actually kind of tested the limits on a lot of what they say, and when they usually say this, it's usually what's safe. Because a lot of time, people, you don't want to spend your money on something that might break as it's being built, and then you end up, getting a message saying, hey, we can't build this. So what I'm going to do is, let's see, where did it go? A lot of my models there. Go to this, and I am going to print that bugger. I don't care if the walls are a little too thin. Add to cart. Go to my cart here. And the one thing that you have to do, if you want them to print something, you can go print it anyway. I'm not going to order it just yet because we are going to make the other part. And also, usually what I like to do is order a few things at a time. That way you can basically have the same shipping for it all, because this is like $9.01, and most of that is just the shipping. So what I'm going to do is we're going to wait on this, and we'll see the end result later. Well, anyway, that's most of what we're going to do right now. So we have the adapter part to fix the stick shift. I'm going to have that printed out, and I'll probably have a follow-up video on how it worked out. I'm going to do a separate video on building a new stick shift, which should basically, if you ever, are into cars or basically would just like to do something, which this doesn't really have to do with stick shifts. What I'm sort of trying to show is you can add parts to just about anything. I probably, because I have lots of projects, I'm going to probably go over most of these projects on tape so that you can basically see how to do them. So far, the projects I have are with guitar parts. I'm making a custom guitar, and it's going to have custom knobs, the holders for the humbuckers are going to be custom and have very special, pretty looking stuff. Let's see. There's a thing that I'm doing for a friend who is in the military, so it's going to be like a plaque type thing for, I forget what it was. She was in Coast Guard, and it's like a little plaque for their branch or whatever. And then, let me see, I have a few small necklace items and such that I'll basically go over. I also have a microphone part that's going to go to my microphone, because I also sing, which is going to be some of the other movies or videos that I'll be doing. Let's see, and then I'll probably be looking at doing some videos in the future about just doing high poly modeling that you could use for, doing photoshopping. And let me see, I have a cat that just arrived, because cats just do that, they just sort of arrive. But yeah, I'm going to be doing both high poly modeling for doing animation or photoshopping purposes, or what I call props, digital props. And then eventually I'll also go into low poly modeling for video games, but since I'm not very savvy with some of that stuff, that might come a little later. Otherwise, I kind of hope this video has been informative to you. Hope it may help somewhat. I'm also going to try to get a screencast for my keys, because it's kind of annoying trying to watch all that. Let's see. I keep looking back mainly because I basically have a eraser board. Both, you'll see one behind me and in front of me. I kind of have to keep track of a lot of different things. So I'm both into music, doing YouTubes, 3D modeling, trying to learn math, a cat that is loving me to death, and yeah, it's way too much crap to be dealing with, but always trying to push it further. Anyway, and also I'm going to do poetry at some point. So, thanks for watching, and have a great weekend.